What happens when two entertainment legends clash on live television over something so personal that it changes everything? Well, buckle up, because what went down between Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah during what was supposed to be a friendly afternoon chat show interview will leave your jaw on the floor. This wasn't your typical celebrity disagreement. This was raw. This was real. And this was absolutely explosive. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because trust me, you're going to want to discuss this one. So, there's Dolly Parton, the undisputed queen of country music, sitting in that plush interview chair across from Queen Latifah on her talk show set. The lights are warm, the audience buzzing with excitement, and everything seems perfectly set up for another delightful celebrity interview. Dolly is sporting one of her signature rhinestone-studded outfits, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed, and that million-dollar smile shining across the studio. Queen Latifah, poised and professional, radiates her usual charm as she prepares to dive into what everyone assumes will be a fun and uplifting discussion about Dolly's latest projects. Dolly Parton, everybody, Queen Latifah announces to thunderous applause. Now, Dolly, honey, it's been way too long since you've graced us with your presence on this show. You look stunning as always. Dolly beams, adjusting her sparkly jacket. Well, aren't you just the sweetest thing, Dana? You know I always love coming on your show because you make everyone feel so welcome. But after some light conversation, Queen Latifah pivots toward a more personal question, one that seems innocent yet unexpectedly complicated. I'm curious, she says, leaning in. With your incredible career spanning 6 decades, you've maintained this image of being everyone's favorite aunt, this wholesome country sweetheart. Is that really who you are behind closed doors? Or is there more to Dolly Parton that the public doesn't see? The audience leans in. Dolly smiles, but behind that smile, something shifts ever so slightly. What you see is what you get, she replies sweetly. But there's a faint tension in her tone. Queen Latifah doesn't back off. She continues, gently probing about the costume of wigs, makeup, and rhinestones. Dolly's posture stiffens, her jeweled nails gripping the arm of her chair. This isn't a costume, sweetheart, she responds. This is who I am. What began as a standard interview suddenly starts feeling like a pressure cooker. Queen Latifah tries to clarify, but Dolly's frustration bubbles to the surface. She accuses Queen Latifah of making assumptions based on her appearance, of reducing her iconic look to an act. And just like that, the studio's mood flips. What had been warm and friendly turned sharp and personal, setting the stage for a confrontation no one expected. Queen Latifah does her best to smooth things over, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. She insists she wasn't suggesting Dolly's look is fake or manufactured, only that everyone has downtime or private moments where they don't feel the need to perform. But Dolly isn't having it. Her voice remains polite, but the sweetness has thinned. What she hears isn't curiosity, it's judgment. She tells Queen Latifah that, wanting to understand, the real Dolly implies that the woman in front of her isn't real at all, that her rhinestones somehow mean artifice instead of authenticity. Queen Latifah pushes forward gently. She explains that she asks all her guests about the person behind the persona. She brings up her own duality, Queen Latifah on stage, Dana at home in sweatpants. But this comparison only fuels Dolly's irritation. Dolly counters sharply, pointing out that Queen Latifah gets to dress down in sweatpants without having her authenticity questioned, while Dolly's sparkle and glamour are somehow treated as artificial. You're telling me your sweatpants version is more authentic than my rhinestone version? She snaps. The tension thickens. Queen Latifah tries again to clarify, insisting that she never implied Dolly was fake, just that audiences like seeing different sides of celebrities. But Dolly isn't convinced. She leans forward, her voice rising. She accuses Queen Latifah of making assumptions about her because of how she looks, just as others have done throughout her life and career. She speaks of growing up with nothing in the mountains of Tennessee, of building her persona from the inside out long before she was famous. This is my authentic self, she insists, and I'm tired of people suggesting otherwise. Queen Latifah finally pushes back. Her patience is wearing thin, and her tone sharpens just enough to be noticed. She tells Dolly she isn't singling her out or judging her. She asks similar questions to all her guests. But Dolly counters with a fiery accusation that women, especially women who are too much, get judged differently than men who dress or perform flamboyantly. The studio's energy shifts from tense to electric. The audience senses a real argument brewing. Queen Latifah tries to hold the line, insisting she meant no disrespect. But Dolly isn't letting the matter go. She fires back that Queen Latifah came into the interview with preconceived ideas, that she expected Dolly to tone herself down or reveal some hidden version of herself that doesn't exist. Each attempt at clarification only seems to make things worse. The conversation becomes a loop of misunderstandings, defensiveness, and growing irritation until suddenly it feels like neither legendary woman is talking about the actual question anymore. They're speaking to something deeper, older, and far more personal. What started as a conversation about authenticity spirals into something raw and emotionally charged. Dolly's frustration bubbles into visible anger as she accuses Queen Latifah of questioning her integrity and her entire identity. Queen Latifah, usually calm under pressure, finally breaks her neutral hosting posture. She tells Dolly she's twisting her words, turning a small question into a personal attack. The audience watches the escalation like a live drama. Dolly's voice rises an octave. She questions why Queen Latifah feels entitled to dissect her identity. She argues she's spent decades proving who she is, through music, movies, charity work, and writing thousands of songs. She says she's earned the right not to have her authenticity questioned. Not after everything she's built from nothing. Queen Latifah fires back, reminding Dolly that she has always shown respect for her career and her legacy, and that the question wasn't meant to diminish her accomplishments. But by now, both women feel attacked, even if that wasn't the intention. The tension reaches a new level when Dolly claims Queen Latifah is being condescending, treating her like a fragile act rather than a seasoned professional. Queen Latifah is visibly stunned. She retorts that Dolly is acting like she's above normal interview questions, that she's creating drama where none existed. Dolly laughs bitterly and accuses Queen Latifah of trying to engineer a dramatic moment for ratings. That comment detonates something inside Queen Latifah. She reminds Dolly that her show has hosted countless celebrities without incident, that the only difference today is Dolly's unwillingness to answer a simple, humanizing question. Dolly responds with an icy calm that slices deeper than raised voices ever could. She tells Queen Latifah that insecurity is trying to tear down another woman instead of celebrating her. Queen Latifah's jaw clenches as she denies the accusation. But the momentum is no longer in her control. The argument escalates into comparisons of careers. Dolly brings up her decades of success, global influence, and the empire she built from the ground up. Queen Latifah fires back that she has her own legacy: music, acting, producing, hosting. She says she doesn't need to be schooled on relevance. Every line hits like a verbal punch, and neither woman backs down. Dolly's voice cracks with rage as she accuses the host of treating her like a case study instead of a guest. Queen Latifah counters that Dolly is the one escalating everything far beyond the conversation's intent. The audience is frozen, unsure whether they're witnessing history or disaster. And then, Dolly reaches her breaking point. Dolly suddenly becomes very quiet. Quiet in a way that feels more powerful than shouting. Without another warning, she reaches for her purse, resting beside her chair. The motion makes the audience gasp. Queen Latifah falters for the first time. Dolly, hold on, she says, her voice softening. We're both professionals. We can work through this. But Dolly shakes her head slowly. A professional, she says, wouldn't try to embarrass a guest on live television. The studio air turns cold. Dolly gathers her things with slow, deliberate movements. Queen Latifah protests, insisting she wasn't trying to embarrass anyone, that she only wanted a real conversation. Dolly replies that a real conversation requires mutual respect, and she lost hers the moment her authenticity was questioned. She stands, smoothing her sparkling jacket. The room falls silent. She looks around the studio, the cameras, the audience, the lights, everything that has been part of her world for decades. I've admired you for years, she says, her voice calmer now, but edged with hurt. I came on this show, expecting a conversation between two women who made it in a tough business. Instead, I got ambushed. Queen Latifah defends herself again, but her voice lacks conviction. She insists the question wasn't meant as an attack. That Dolly is reading too deeply into it. Dolly stops and turns. I've answered tough questions my entire life, she says. This wasn't tough. This was disrespectful. Queen Latifah challenges her. So you're just going to walk away? Dolly gives her a cool look. I'm not running, she replies. I'm refusing to be disrespected. She steps toward the exit. The cameras follow her, capturing every glimmer of her rhinestone jacket as she walks across the set. The audience sits in stunned silence. Queen Latifah finally calls out, Dolly, it doesn't have to end like this. Dolly pauses, raises one manicured hand, and waves without turning back. Yes, Dana, she says. It does. And just like that, Dolly Parton, one of the most iconic entertainers in history, walks off the Queen Latifah Show set. The camera lingers on Queen Latifah, standing alone in the center of her own stage, processing what just happened. The audience doesn't applaud. They don't even breathe. They've just witnessed a moment that will become one of the most talked about interviews in daytime television history. Dolly is gone. The tension remains. And the world is left wondering, how did a simple question lead to one of the most explosive celebrity interviews ever aired?